Process of mandatory e-invoicing started on October 1, 2020, with the businesses having turnover of rupees 500 crore or more. Now, within 3 years, this threshold has come down to rupees 5 crore, and that's going to be mandatory from August 1, 2023. There are a lot of questions. The basic question is why it is going to be mandatory and what kind of hand-holding GSTN is going to provide. To talk about all those things, we have Mr. Dheeraj Rastogi with us. He is Executive Vice President of GSTN. Mr. Rastogi, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Why it is going to be mandatory, or why there is a need to make this mandatory?
Actually, if you see over the past few years, the government is moving in the direction of making the compliance easy. So now, if you say that making something mandatory, then how does it ease the compliance burden? Actually, what is the intent behind making it mandatory is that the government is trying to link a business relevant process with the compliance. So now what happens is if one reports an invoice, then at least two things happen. One is that credit chain security creeps in. So in the entire chain, credit is assured. The other thing it happens that whenever the invoice gets reported, it gets automatically populated into the returns. So once it starts happening, so now the automatic preparation of the GSTR1 starts. From GSTR1, the liability travels into GSTR2B and 3B. So entire thing gets automated, and at the end of the month, when one has to file the return, he simply has to add something which is missing in the return. He doesn't have to do the compilation of the entire return again and again and check if some errors are there or not. So to that extent, it makes the compliance process easy. So that is, I think, the intent behind making it mandatory.
Okay. Sir, when it started with businesses having a turnover of rupees 500 or crore, 500 crore or more, the number was around 11,000, if I remember correctly, sir. And now it is going to be in lakh. So what kind of number we are looking from August 1 for them, this e-invoice will be mandatory?
So with this making e-invoice mandatory for businesses above turnover of 5 crores, actually it will add about 5 lakh more taxpayers into the net. But you have to leave out those businesses where the exemption is there. For example, the banking financial space, the banks, NBFCs, insurance, all those are exempt from generating the invoice. The other thing is that the numbers that would be, I think, finally would be around 4 lakhs or so. So they would be added. The overall numbers who will generate the e-invoice would touch about 10 lakhs in a month overall. So that is the number. But in terms of if you see the number of e-invoices that will be added to system, we estimate about another 2.5 crores in a month.
Okay, sir. If we talk about the people who are going to join this thing, or the businesses who are going to be affected by this kind of change, most of them are in the medium category or the medium size of businesses. So what kind of hand-holding GSTN is going to provide to them so that the transition from non-mandatory to the mandatory would be easier for them?
I think prior to making it mandatory, there were several steps taken by the government. One was that we have introduced not only one IRP, but there are 4 more IRPs which are available in the market. So IRPs are the invoice registration authorities. To any one of them, one can report the invoices, and then from them it gets reported to the government. So having multiple IRPs makes the job easier. So here the situation would be that redundancy is there, so business doesn't stop. So you can report to anyone. If one is down, you can report to another one. The other thing is that with this, you also have the many of the IRPs, or maybe all, we have made it mandatory that the basic invoice reporting is free of cost.
Mhm.
So there is no cost of reporting the invoice. What the IRPs have provided the services are, like they have provided the offline tools, or maybe the tools which can be simply downloaded, information can be filled up, and then simply if you touch the button of send, then it gets reported and IRN number is generated. Now that IRN only has to be printed on the invoice which you are already generating.
Okay. So for the basic invoice, there is no fee. For any other services,
Yeah.
special services, they have to pay the fee. What could be the range of the fee, sir?
That has not been fixed by the government because that depends on the market forces. I mean, creating multiple IRPs, behind that, the government is also thinking that if you have multiple IRPs, then the competition between them at least rationalizes and reduces the fee. So that is the thinking behind that. So maybe they have also made several structures, like basic is free. If you add some one addition, then you have to pay a little more, I mean a little fee. Then if you add complete accounting also, then it is something added. So that kind of a structure is there. I think by visiting of any of those IRPs website, the things can be found out.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, only for the value addition you have to pay, not for the basic thing.
Not
So
for the
now,
basic compliance.
okay. So now coming to the aspect of if somebody has done a mistake on generating an invoice, or somebody has done a mistake on invoice, what is the way out available? Can be rectified immediately, or what process he will have to take?
Uh, there are two possible scenarios. One is that one realizes mistake within 24 hours. In that scenario, the invoice can be cancelled on the IRP, and then a fresh invoice can be generated and which can be reported like the earlier one. The second scenario is if somebody realizes mistake after 24 hours. So as of now, there is no provision to amend or cancel the invoice after 24 hours. It has to be then corrected in the return only. It can be corrected and correctly reported in the return.
Okay.
So the
And
situation would be like the cancelled invoice in your return, it will be reflecting that it has been cancelled, and whatever new invoice you have reported, that invoice will be shown in the return. It will be in a situation where it is realized in 24 hours. Where after 24 hours, you have to yourself do the correction by saying it is cancelled and then it is newly issued invoice. And
okay.
newly issued will automatically come into the return.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
And what happens, sir, if it is mandatory for one kind of business assessee, like say person having a business turnover of rupees 6 crore a year, an year, he is not generating e-invoice. So what kind of implication for him will be there?
So, going by the question you have said that one thing is that initially the government goes with the soft hand so that the people have businesses have time to adapt. So the if you see the notification was also issued sufficient in advance, and then the advertisement and the pamphlet, then the advisories, they were also issued in time well in advance. Now if somebody forgets, then it normally happens that there is now a period available to the businesses where they can report it subsequently also. So the question is, if your recipient has to get the credit, then as per law, if the supplier is required to be issued e-invoice, he should issue an invoice, then only the credit gets secured. Otherwise, it can be questioned at the recipient end. So the better thing it would be to comply, and maybe if you find that if you have forgotten to report an invoice, then you can report it subsequently. But it should be within a year, because thereafter, after 3 months, I think the normal window closes, and thereafter you have to do some in return. You can always report and do it. So as
Okay.
far as from the supplier side, it may not be a problem, but on the recipient side, it may be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, what kind of impact you see on the compliance as well as on the collection of this new norm, which is going to affect to be implemented from August 1, sir?
So the compliance, I think, by linking the business relevant process with the compliance process, the government has tried to achieve not only the reduction in the cost of business, but also they have tried to reduce the litigation, so that, I mean, if the invoice is reported and the recipient has correctly taken, to that extent, one is saved from audit or any other compliance requirements. So that is one. So I think that time when it is freed up, one can always use it for other productive activities, and then it will also lead to quicker economic fund flow in the economy, because the buyer reports it, and the buyer gets to know when the supplier is reported, and he also gets to know whether it's a genuine invoice reported to the government also, and then he can assured of the credit. Right now, what businesses are doing, they wait for the return uploading of the invoice by the supplier, and after they are assured that it has been uploaded, and then only they pay. Now that period gets shortened up, because it gets immediately notified to the recipient also, and government is also in the process where the recipients can download invoices directly from the portal, and they can integrate it with their ERPs, so that the entire thing gets automated.
Okay. And in terms of collections, sir, since we are seeing a monthly collection of 1,60,000 crore, something like that, 150, 160, now it has become a new normal, 150 has become new normal. So what kind of impact you see in terms of collections, sir?
Maybe this initiative is not perhaps in the direction of generating revenue. It is making the businesses free of unnecessary activities. So maybe that, if you look at from that point of view, then it's okay. Then the second thing, if you can say, is the credit chain from buyer to supplier gets assured. So to that extent, the misuse of credit, maybe it might come down, and to that extent some cash revenues may go up, but there's no hard and fast estimation as to how much revenue will go, because strictly speaking, this practice of the government is this step of the government is not towards generating the revenue.
Okay. And sir, if I talk about the total number of e-invoices which will be generated from August 1 onward, and is GSTN having complete or the sufficient bandwidth to provide this kind of facility? So what kind of number you are looking, sir?
Right now, about 60 to 65 lakh invoices gets generated. So if you see, then it will add another 4 or 5 lakhs invoices per day. And now we had prepared in advance regarding this. So maybe we have already 5 IRPs, so there's redundancy available in the system. So it will not be a situation that website is down, or maybe it's not available for generating. So in some of the countries, when it was initially launched, say about 7, 8, 10 years back, so there used to be a problem often reported that now the portal is down for 24 or 48 hours. So the entire business is coming to standards still. So we have ensured that we have some IRPs available parallelly who provide the basic services free. So such situation doesn't come.
Okay. Sir, now my final question to you. Within 3 years, we have seen the threshold comes down from 500 crore to 5 crore.
Yes.
And now the expectation is that in coming days, coming months, coming year, or at the best I can say, it will be a universal thing. That means every assessee will have to provide mandatory e-invoicing. So in that kind of situation, what are the 2, 3 key initiatives which GSTN is preparing to make the compliance more easy and also to facilitate this transition?
So actually, to begin with, when it was started for 500 crores and above, the numbers of invoices and all were not very clear, and what kind of the infrastructure would be required. So to that extent, we started with the slow pace, and then wait and watch type of thing was there. Then it was realized that we should have redundancy in the system. So we added some other IRPs also apart from the government NIC one. There are four more were added, and NIC has also added the second one. So to that extent, we have added the capacity. Now the situation is ripe when one can go below 5 crores also, because the number of invoices that are getting added now is inversely proportional to the number of, to the turnover. So people with turnover more than 500 crores generate maximum invoices, whereas people with the turnover below, the number of invoices per business goes on per month goes on reducing. So we are almost prepared to take the entire load. One was the first step that was taken by the government. The other steps, like if the buyer also wants to integrate the process with integrate his system with the invoice reporting system, that is also now we are almost prepared, and they can get the invoices directly from the portal as to what information has been reported there. So second step is that I think it would be available in next 1 or 2 months. The third thing that we have launched is a QR, that mobile app. So using that mobile app, the recipient or anyone can verify whether the invoice has been issued in his name, and whether the particulars there which he is seeing, those are correct one or not. So that is the step which has been not only will be making it easier for the trade to comply. Then the third thing that is now going to be now, which third thing which is already available, is the auto population of the invoice data into the return. Then there is a complicated table 12 in the return, which where the person has to report uh, tax rate wise, recipient wise, as to what is the value, what is the amount, and all these things have to be reported. This is also in the process where the GSTN is trying is in the process that they get auto populated in that table also. So now one would be having almost prepared return auto populated, where he will have to add only the missing values, like the what business to consumer sale has been done. Maybe going forward in future, that may also be added, but then it's a strictly the area where the GST Council and the government have to take a decision when to step in that direction.
Mr. Rastogi, thank you very much to give all the answers and clarifying on various issues. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you all.